And welcome to Down the Alley. This is PMAC.
And Ted T.S. Spirides.
Welcome to Down the Alley here. Sorry, I'm switching the view. Ted and I are on the mic here for the final episode of the 2024 season. Katie's on the road. Shout out Katie. She's on the road with Team 36, traveling out to the lacrosse famous capital of the world, Maryland. I know it's pretty crazy. She's in Maryland right now with Team
Baltimore.
36. Baltimore,
I believe so, yeah. Baltimore, Maryland.
crazy stuff. But before we dive into the last episode things, the final games, the last dances, the season recaps, we'd like to thank the team, the team, the big man who's been riding with Down the Alley, who put their name on the line with Down the Alley for the Minnesota high school lacrosse season all season. Old Southern Barbecue, the sponsor of Down the Alley for 2024, the first big sponsor of the podcast. Not a big deal. Old Southern Barbecue, thank you for riding with us. And we got a message. We got a special message from the big man.
Is it an official statement?
It's an yeah. I guess it could be. It could be publicized. You know, we could do a printout, post, whatever. Could make graphics. You could do probably a lot of different things. But in podcast form, we're gonna read the Old Southern Barbecue statement from the big man. Old Southern Barbecue would like to congratulate Benilde St. Margaret's boys and Lakeville South girls on winning the state championships. We'd also like to congratulate all the teams for making this year very exciting. Congratulations to the players who earned all conference, all section, all state awards, and then to the seniors. Good luck in all your future endeavors. To the players who will be suiting up next year, keep working hard. Your hard work is putting Minnesota lacrosse on the national map. Old Southern Barbecue is proud to be part of the Minnesota lacrosse family, and it was honored. It was an honor to support Down the Alley and feed the players, coaches, and families all season long. We look forward to doing the same next year. Have a great summer from the big man. Would you fire me up?
Yeah, it's crazy that the season is over. The champs have been crowned. The barbecue has been eaten. It doesn't really slow down for most of us. I feel like in the lacrosse world, everybody's just gearing up for summer travel now, which is no small feat. I know that you said Katie is in Baltimore this weekend, along with, I'm sure, a bunch of other teams and players and families. We're headed to Philadelphia next weekend.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. The lacrosse is going to be great, but the food's going to be even better.
I gotta shout out Coach Mikey Zadroga from Lawrence University, a Philly-born person, and we usually text and or call or whatever our coaching network to say, "Hey, we're going to this tournament. Can you send a couple options? What should we eat?" Was his list the most comprehensive list we've ever had from I mean, this wasn't a list, this was a directory. This was a restaurant directory.
Oh, 100%. Usually you get like the person's favorite spot, right? Which is great. Like, hey, there's other places, but you got to go here. Great. Other coaches might send a foodie or a list, that they didn't make. Okay, cool. Like, fine, but that gives me homework to do. I have to read or listen to these videos or search through it. Fine. Yeah, Mikey, he's given us by location, by genre, by he's breaking things down. He's given, all right, if you're in this state of mind, if you're going with the full team, if it's just the coaches, great breakdown. I it's I feel very confident with the scouting report, for this food situation going in. And I can't wait to I can't wait to see where we land out in Philly food wise.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. So yeah, I guess my original point was like the season just in a blink of an eye is over. champions have been crowned. Everybody's kind of still in lacrosse mode, if they're into it. But what a year it was. I felt like every week, every night, there was a big game. There was a top 5 matchup. There was a top 10 matchup. There was an upset. There was an interesting score. We always had questions. We rarely had answers. But in true ironic fashion, in a year of questions and questions and questions, the chalk prevails in the state tournament. The number one boys, the number one girls get it done. And, great teams win when it matters. And the girls' game was I would say, much closer than the boys' game
For sure.
from like, I believe there were lead changes, there were ties. It felt like on the boys' side, Benilde was it was close-ish for a while, but Benilde kind of was in control for the whole game. Um, we talked a lot about just the depth of Benilde and just their ability to roll out, whoever they want. Like their fifth pole is committed to play Division One. Like, this guy doesn't even touch the field or whatever. I think that maybe wore on North a little bit, but I'll let you talk a little bit about the girls' game because you were there. But with the boys, we talked about the cream rises to the top,
Yep.
and it really was the superstars on both teams. I'll give credit to North too and their superstars, but Benilde, Sky Rolled, Gus Bell, Dylan Parker, their defense that, maybe they don't get their names shouted out a ton, but Nick Capo and Jack Bourget and can't remember the other. I think it's gosh, I forgot his name. Number 2. I apologize, but long story short, the big guns stepped up at the big moment. Quinn Power, Blake Piscatello, Max Moline for North. They kept it, they kept the Panthers in it for a while before I think Benilde kind of took a stranglehold at the end of the game. But the best teams ended up winning. And, unfortunately, I didn't get to see really much of the game. I was in the pouring rain at Blue Ox. I got to watch Blue Ox lacrosse for the day. I was hoping to catch the game, but then the time got moved right in the middle of the day when we were up at that tournament. So we were playing in a mud pit. It sounds like it was a sloppy one for the championship games as well. But congrats to the Benilde Red Knights on their championship.
Yeah, and like on the boys side, the girls side, um, two of the top 3 teams kind of all year, I'd say, kind of made it in, right? And I would say the top 3 preseason teams were probably on most lists, right? Lakeville South, Prior Lake, and Benilde in some order of those 3. Most of the season. You had some other teams kind of sprinkle in there and make some noise, cause some chaos. Like on the boys' side, all season it seemed like, especially in the regular season, there's upsets. In sections, you didn't know who was coming out, but then there at the end, Lakeville South, Prior Lake, Benilde, top 3 teams. Lakeville South, very impressive team. Again, not breaking news here. They go undefeated. You kind of alluded to it and started talking about it. That first half, Lakeville South comes out, gets the first punch. Prior Lake marches back, gets a lead, halfway, 3/4 of the way through the second quarter. And then, if I'm not mistaken off the top of my head, game was tied up at half. So awesome second half or awesome first half to set up, what could have been, kind of a crazy, a crazy second half. You had a monsoon. You had a monsoon. I was in the stands just getting poured on. Umbrellas were everywhere. Some umbrellas were getting, what would you call it when they get kind of flipped? They get kind of flipped.
Inside out or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Umbrellas are going inside out.
It, it
Y-
was a mess.
you had it all. You had it all going on. And the second half, I don't know what it was. I don't know. Um, I, I I don't know what clicked, if it was a second half or a halftime speech, but Lakeville South girls got in their zone. Mentally, didn't lose a draw, didn't lose a face off, controlled the ball, buried their chances, took a sizable lead in the third, and it was just kind of too much from there for Prior Lake to make a comeback. Lakeville South showed in that second half of that championship game that they were the best team, and they got the job done.
For sure. Um, yeah. So, we got kind of, I guess, the chalk prevails in the team, the state championship games. Um, I don't know. Uh, it feels like both Lakeville South and Benilde St. Margaret's boys and Lakeville South girls lose quite a bit of their core. Like maybe that I don't think we can ever go to the point to say like they're not going to be contenders in the future. I think the culture has been built, but would you say that both of these teams like they they rode out that quote unquote window with a star group, capped it off. Do we expect both of these teams to be favorites next year? I don't know much about the Prior Lake girls. I guess a little bit. You and Katie have mentioned a lot is returning. So they were runner up this year. Do we feel like they're a favorite next year? Lakeville North boys, they lose obviously Quinn Power, who's a extremely important player to their team, but they get a lot of their guys back. Their whole
I
defense,
know.
a lot of their attackmen. So really, the only person that they lose that's a superstar is well, I shouldn't say only superstar. They lose a short stick D Mitty who's really good. They lose Quinn Power who's an X factor, but a lot comes back. Benilde, we have to assume, has reserves ready to step into starting roles, and I know a lot of their young guys played this year and got time, so that'll be interesting. Lakeville South girls, I don't know too much about, so I don't. Maybe you know more. I know some of their superstars were seniors.
Yeah, I think in my mind, for some of these blue blood programs, powerhouse programs, kind of what you're saying is, and I would agree, like they're losing this kind of core group, this window where the window was wide open, them for the taking. They had the studs. Um, they were clearly in a position to contend for state championships. I would put Benilde in there. I would put Lakeville North in there, Benilde Girls and Lakeville South. Now, I think all those four, what each of them lose is different. Obviously, they're four different programs. However, I think there's going to be, maybe looking ahead into next year, different favorites. I think Prior Lake, with what they lost, but what they bring back, they've got a lot more coming back. Clearly, like everyone can see it, than maybe Benilde and Lakeville South. However, again, the next group for those two teams, let's talk to the source here. Once we get closer to the season, the source might be like, "Yo, no, your take here at the final episode of last year, you're completely wrong. Uh, Prior Lake's actually the 10th favorite team, and Lakeville South and Benilde, they're right back.
Yeah.
That I don't know. For the boys side, again, what's Benilde's next wave? They've had a few waves here now in a row. Do they have another one coming? Is it going to be a next year, or is it kind of a reload year for them? Again, I don't know. I'm not in the locker room at Benilde, but it definitely a question mark. Lakeville North, Lakeville North is the interesting one in this equation. Like you said, they have a good chunk of their core still coming back, but you lose it. You lose your cheat code. He's
Yeah.
not just a super. he's not just a superstar. He's not just a really good midi or a really good. He's literally a cheat code. Like he's an all-time Mount Rushmore Fogo from the state of Minnesota that like yeah, you can have another Fogo who's pretty good, but I maybe they have the next, cheat code Fogo who's a freshman, who's going to just, step right in. Again, that could be possible. That's just not on my radar currently. So that's Lakeville North's biggest question is how do you replace a cheat code?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting that the identity of Lakeville North might change. They might not. I think they still have a lot of talent, but are they going to be the electric factory team? Can they play that way? Um, and still still do as much damage as they did where not if they don't know if they're going to get the ball back every single time. I will say in the playoffs, Lakeville North did do a much better job 6v6 settled offense than I anticipated them doing. And I thought their defense stepped up as well. So I think we got kind of a look at like what a healthy, like balanced strategic attack of Lakeville North when they kind of went into playoffs being like, we have to be careful. We can't just expect Quinn to run and gun and do all this for us. Like we got to protect him a little bit and be efficient and slow the game down. And when they did that, they were still just as explosive, pretty much until they got to Benild's defense that was just basically could match them up like 1v1 and say like we're just as good on defense as you are as on offense. So a very interesting matchup. Um any Before we go to individuals here, any teams next year off the top of your head, boys and girls, where you're like, they have a really good chance to be somewhere near the state final that maybe a team that wasn't this year, but has a ton coming back or is very close?
Again, I don't you might know actually more on this team than me, but one kind of team program that I have starred who made a lot of noise this year um is Eastridge.
Yeah.
How close are they to again making that state final push? Are they've got this group, they've got this core. I think a lot of them are back. I think a lot of them are probably now seniors, juniors. It's probably now is the window. Now is the time for if it's going to happen for them. I think it's like this year, next year. So that's kind of the one. The one I have starred for next year on the boys' side at least of a kind of a different name than maybe we traditionally talk about. And is it going to happen for them?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think their core group is junior, senior next year. They do lose their face-off guy who's really good. They lose a star, kind of all do it all midfielder, so that will be interesting. Um, what about? I mean, a couple teams that come to mind. Again, I haven't dug into the exact, um, the exact like grad years of kids, but Wayzata had a really good year. But I think, they were built on defense this year. Most of their offense was 2025s. So they'll get a lot of those guys back. But I think they lose most of their D, goalie included. And so that will be interesting to see how they replenish kind of like the identity of their team, the strength of their team. But they were really good this year. They won the Lake Conference. I'm extremely interested in Eden Prairie, because I mean, shout out to them. We've already talked about them, but a team that was kind of up and down all year, kind of under the radar, really made a push and played Benilde tough in the semis. Um, a team that people didn't even expect them to get to the section final, let alone the state semis. So they went on an incredible run. They lose their kind of their Iron Man midfielder, face off, do it all guy. They lose their star attackman, but they get all their D back. So, and you had mentioned PMAC just playing them personally. You felt like they had a strong core of defensemen, a lot of good polls, a lot of good athletes. Not a surprise. Eden Prairie's got athletes. They get their goalie back, who had a great run in the playoffs. So, are they a team that if they bring up a couple new offensive guys, are they right back in the driver's seat to be sitting somewhere near the section final, state semis, maybe get to the state final this year or next year?
Yeah, I think, you could just pull up the Section 6 tab and
Yeah.
just take a glance at those teams and be like, yeah, another I think a lot of the teams were younger-ish. Like Shakopee was super young this year. So
Dynamo.
they're gonna get older. Great. Well, they're gonna get better.
Yeah.
You've got Eden Prairie who joined with them this year. They ended up winning the darn thing. You
Yeah.
think Edina's going away? I don't.
Yeah.
Jefferson, they still got a couple of their studs hanging around for one more year. So and that's just what you still have Eastview in there. You still got. I feel like I'm missing two or three more teams that could be in the mix. Rosemount gets a year older. Some of their best players
In
are
eighth grade.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Interesting. It is
yeah.
interesting. I think, yeah, I do think all those teams are, maybe were downish this year. It's hard to say down. They were still very competitive, but, you know, I think any of those Section 6 teams could come out and be state champs next year. Rogers had a great year. I don't know how much they lose senior wise, but I think they're younger. I think they're juniors and sophomores, honestly. When they
Yeah,
put
what's going to be their story? They obviously had a great run. Again,
they,
they get to a section semi and maybe played their hardest competition of the season, and it
yeah,
didn't go well for them. But
I mean, they were what, 12-2 this year,
yeah,
13, and they
something like
were
that.
crazy. So, I mean, are they, now that they've been through it and go, all right, here's what we need to do to win the section. Like it's not about how many goals we score against the weak
Right.
teams. Like we got to be prepared for a Wayzata or a Maple Grove and eventually probably Benilde, right? That would be, they have to beat two of those three teams at some point.
Yeah.
Um, and so that'll be interesting. I think the Duluth, Hermantowns, Cloquet, all those teams seem to be like getting one step better every year.
Yep.
Are we going to see one of those teams come out of Section 7 in the future here?
And we already
I
know
don't.
who's coming out of Section 8.
Yeah, yeah. More
Moorhead, book
any
it.
dominate.
Book it. I'm never doubting Moorhead again. Moorhead, next 10 years, for the next 10 years,
Yeah,
Moorhead section, pending any major changes in the section.
yeah.
But book it, Section 8, Moorhead.
Yeah. So the game is growing. Teams are getting better. Owatonna had a great year this year, being kind of outer suburban team. They were a tough matchup. They gave a lot of South suburban teams problems. I know they lose a couple guys, but they got a nice young group of kids coming up. They got some good coaches that are committed down there. Brand new high school, brand new turf, brand new resources. I think it might be a growing community now. It's kind of the next ring of where people are moving out to. Lakeville's too expensive now.
Yeah.
Lakeville and Farmington and Newmarket and like that. So it's like that's the next group. So could that be a growing community? It's exciting to see a lot of these teams, getting better, and a lot of these outer conferences getting better. Mounds View had a good year. I think they lose some seniors, but like, maybe this was a stepping stone. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these emerging teams and how they handle quote unquote blue blood programs. But, you know, this year it was Lakeville, Stillwater, Eden Prairie, and Benilde in the Final Four. And, Prior Lake had been there a million times before that. Like the teams that have the culture of winning seem to when it counts are getting there. So these new teams have to find a way to crack through that. So it'll be interesting to see. last kind of thing on my list for this final episode is just to shout out the Ms. and Mr. Lacrosse award winners, goalie winners.
Yep.
Uh, we got on the girls' side, Ms. Lacrosse, Julia Evans of Benilde St. Margaret's, and Katie Colleran as Ms. Goalie. And then on the boys' side, I have to look it up quick. I know Gus Bell won the Mr. Lacrosse, and then Mr. Goalie is
Jefferson goalie.
Bennett Lindman.
Yep.
So, shout out to those four individuals. Uh, honestly, shout out to all the nominees. There were a ton of great players this year that probably all were deserving. But just a really, I think all four of them had amazing careers, not just senior seasons. But I mean, we were talking about the Jefferson goalie 3 years ago when he was
Yeah.
like a freshman. We were talking about Gus Bell when he was a freshman. I'm sure Julia and Katie, I don't watch as much girls lacrosse, but I know they were contributing as freshmen and sophomores.
Yeah, a couple years ago in a winter league game that I went to at the Savage Dome, I was like, whoa, like she's going to be a problem for years to come.
Yep. Yep. So, and I know Katie Colleran has been the starting goalie at Chan since sophomore year. So, four players that obviously as seniors are being recognized for their senior season, but amazing careers, and wherever they are and end up deciding to go and play lacrosse at the next level, they're going to represent Minnesota lacrosse at a really high level and showcase, that we do have talent that comes out of this state, and those that are putting in the work and doing it, they're going to go represent at their college programs for us. So we're excited about that. Um, any other, I guess, any other final thoughts? Favorite moment or what to expect? I don't know. We don't really prepare for these shows. People think we're like have an agenda to be out to get them, but you're seeing basically me and PMAC are like, so what do you want to talk about today?
Um, this doesn't have to be the last thing we talk about, but um, end of the season, you have your banquets, right? And when you go to a banquet, you're shouting out everybody that it takes to make a season happen. And when you're in the season, at least for me as a coach, you kind of forget, like, I'm just trying to, put a defensive game plan together. I'm trying to watch film. I'm trying to put a practice plan together. Like, I'm trying to stay between the lines and in the film room as much as possible. The rest of it, pasta dinners, booking refs, booking fields, booking buses, booking the streaming, like the million things that the board does, that the parent volunteers do, the fundraisers, all that stuff, takes people, takes a community, takes a it takes a lot of bodies to make a good season for a high school program happen. So, that's just one team, right, of people. Like, there's there's tens, well, between the boys and girls, there's tens, hundreds of teams across the state, as well as the people right in administration of the MSHSL, the refs, the medics, etc. So everybody involved, from down the alley, like, I thank you, because I know how many people it takes just at Prior Lake to make things happen, directly and indirectly. So from the down the alley perspective, like, for all the teams across the state, like, however you're involved, if you're a player, if you're a coach, if you're a volunteer, if you're a ref, etc., whatever position or positions you hold, like, thank you. And then even within down the alley, like, we tried a few different things this year. A few worked really well. I'd say a couple maybe we swung and missed on. Like, we took chances and people took chances. So, like, the the little film that we got up, or, pictures, like, thank you to the people who did that. But something that I thought did really well was kind of the rankings, the media, the Down the Alley media rankings. So for all the sources that were involved in that, submitting your votes, etc., like that was a hit. Like that was a huge hit for the players and the fans. And obviously, like, me and Ted just can't be the two voters. So, like, thank you for the Down the Alley community, for being engaged, for the sources being sources, giving us information, voting, hitting us up with, breakdowns of games. Obviously we already shouted out Old Southern Barbecue, but, thank you to them for, sponsoring us, and covering the costs. Like, there's a lot of costs. It's not just a mic and a camera, like all the technology that it takes to have a podcast, to have a website, etc. At least we get to cover the costs. So thank you, Old Southern Barbecue, for that. I don't know if there's anything else big I missed, but, Ted, feel free to chime in and anything. But if I missed anybody, thank you. Ted, what do you
Yeah.
got?
Yeah, thanks to also a couple more thank yous. I don't know if you mentioned this, but thanks to the coaches and the players too, that we'll see people on sidelines and stuff, but coaches will text us and give us information about their team or share something so that we can obviously a lot of the stuff we do is a bit, or it's trying to get the people going, it's trying to be funny and entertaining, but we do also want to try to have an educated take on Minnesota lacrosse, and we can't do that without coaches giving us like at least something about like their game, like a breakdown, whatever. So we appreciate them participating. Thanks to the kids, right, for listening and just having fun with it and DMing us and being a part of it. I feel like they kind of get the bit better than some adults do, so it's pretty funny. And uh, coming up and asking about bratwurst toppings or whatever, during a game, like it's kind of funny. And yeah, like all the people involved to make Minnesota high school lacrosse great, whether it's part of this podcast or not. But we don't have anything to talk about if the players, coaches, officials, and parents and table workers don't go out there and help us have a product to talk about. So it definitely was a fun season, and it's fun to cover the sport that's important to us and doesn't get a lot of coverage and be a part of that. Um, but I every season, kind of to close, I guess, every season I go into next year being like, this this is definitely going to be the team to beat, or this is definitely going to happen. After this year, and kind of after last year too, I don't know if I can, even though it ended up being the chalk that won, I wasn't really sold that Benilde and Lakeville South were going to win the championship until they won it. I wasn't like, yeah, nobody's beating them. Like even with Lakeville South girls kind of dominating all year, I still felt like there was a lot of other good teams that could give them a chance. Same with Benilde. Benilde lost a game this year during the regular season. They had a lot of 1-goal games. So in kind of funny fashion, even though the number one teams ended up winning, I go into 2025 going, I have no idea. I have really no idea what's going to happen. And I guess that makes it exciting. It's wide open again. Everybody's 0-0 again.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that last point for sure. Of it's more teams are getting better. More coaches are taking over kind of different programs, new programs, different programs in different cities are growing a lot. Just as cities in general, as well as, indirectly their lacrosse programs. So I think year after year, it's just going to continue to get more interesting. Half the time I'm like, what are we hop on these mics and what are we going to talk about? And sure, there's gonna be a lot of lacrosse, might be a bratwurst. Every time we get on here, there's something to talk about, and it seems to get the people going. So sometimes when I'm like, why the heck are we doing this? Um, that'll be the like, why are we talking about brats? That's the reason that like the people get re-engaged, and that gets the people going, and people are back. And I don't know. It's kind of a weird deal, but yeah, I don't know.
As far as what to expect, I guess moving forward, we're probably going to take a little break. We might hop on. You never know. I bet there'll be some salsa reviews this summer. I
Yeah.
bet be maybe some barbecue reviews, maybe some food reviews from Philly. Maybe people want a cheesesteak review. I don't know. Um, but we're gonna try to get some coaches on in the off season like we always do. I think people liked that and wanted it. Like we didn't do as much of that during the season this year. So we're gonna try to hopefully get more coaches on. Um, but yeah, we're gonna rethink some things and we'll be back for sure at some point in the when lacrosse season kind of gets underway again. But I don't I think it'll be interesting to see how the summer plays out and then kind of what that leads into how we feel about what high school lacrosse who's going to be who come September, come fall league, come winter league, as we lead into 2025.
Yeah. We're gonna go to the whiteboard here and draw up ideas. Every year we make this look and feel a little bit differently, and we try things. And some stick, some miss, for various reasons. So, but yeah, I agree. I think in the off season, hopefully we'll be able to bring on a variety of different coaches, players, etc. Before we get to this time next year, when we're back in the meat of the season. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. At least today.
Yeah.
Um, we'll yeah, we'll see how things shake out. We'll try to keep the people updated on what we're doing, maybe more through the Instagrams and the blogs, uh, more so than on the mics. And we'll get on the mics, when we can here. Um, maybe we'll do some hotel interviews when we're on the road,
Yep.
in various states. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not promising anything. I'm not promising anything, but we'll see what the people want. Maybe the big man's got a couple ideas. I don't know. See what happens. See what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Well, so long to the 2024 high school season. Thank you, everybody. And have a great summer. Good luck if you're on the club circuit. And we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks for riding with us this season, and we'll be back. We'll be back.